See, was of course based on the René Descartes' reductionism. Reductionism was successful in the last couple of hundred years. He asserted that if you do not understand things, you have to divide things into smaller sections. And even if you do not understand, you can further divide things into smaller sections, to elements, reduction. And then finally, you must have reached to a state where you can understand, and develop things easily. And actually, the science and technology in the 20th century followed this line and was successful, actually. Right? But however, then as I showed in the previous slides, very little people know see the trunks. What is the fundamental, say, knowledge and fundamental action we should take? On the other hand, in the Eastern countries, say, shown like a symbolized here, Kukai, who is a Buddhism monk, who is very famous in Japan, had a rather perspective view, even though he did not do a very detailed research on the twigs, but he did research in brain by thinking on the trunks, fundamental sciences, and show a very good view, even at that time in 9th centuries. So modern people tend to go into specialties and lost the chance to think about, at the time, the whole issues, holistic view. That's what I'd like to mention in my talk. Well, nuclear power plant stations, in this case, the disaster at Fukushima, are examples of science and technology knowledge being applied to secure. So of course, originally, nuclear power plant was meant applied to secure a lasting energy source. Okay. The recent nuclear disaster, as shown here, at Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan, which was triggered by devastating earthquake and tsunami, that a natural event, can be seen as an intersection of the two paradoxes which I mentioned. That happened in the intersection of the two paradoxes. On the other hand, we have a shortage of energy source due to the limited capacity of a planet, as I said, combined with ever-increasing demand of energy to support a convenient lifestyle. The issues that I discussed in the first paradox. And on the other hand, the major reason for the slow recovery process of such kind of nuclear disaster is the fact that there are very few leaders who have a holistic understanding, the network of specialists in the complex trees of knowledge which I have shown you today, to produce and operate a nuclear power plant properly. So this event could be said happened at the corner of the intersection of the two paradoxes. It should be stressed, however, that science is not to blame. It should be stressed that science is not to blame. It is vital that science knowledge is applied appropriately. In the case of this disaster, the safety standards for the nuclear power plant were not decided by the scientists who developed the technology being used, but by the industry and by the government, which stood to profit from it. The nuclear crisis was caused by natural disasters, actually, say the earthquake and tsunami. But there is also a large amount of human responsibility. The nuclear power industry perpetuated the myth of nuclear safety, but the disaster demonstrated that the safety standards were not high enough. In this case, it is not the science that is to blame, but human, say, wishes for better life, or if I may, I would say human greed and arrogance. As I mentioned, we need people who can comprehend the trunk of the tree of knowledge. We must bring people back. We must bring the people back to the original trunk. Say, from outer branches to isolated higher specialization, to a place where they have a wider view of entire tree of knowledge. I feel such a people will have true leadership qualities and ability to reconstruct our accumulated wealth of learning, as well as the ability to develop new knowledge. And those skills will enable them to address the complex issues we currently face on the globe. So in Confucianism, this is a letter of Chinese character. Some of the Japanese people already understand, but most of you may understand. This reads, Mohon no Gaku. That means the fundamentals. Focus on the fundamentals are very important. Focus on the fundamentals. As I said, the globe, current civilization symbolized by this by this sphere, we are struggling to maintain current civilization with many people and many wishes, desire for better life. But if we wishes more and more, then this slope is getting higher and higher. So we do need a help of philosophy and harmony, like shown here. As you see here, the slope is getting steeper and steeper. But with the help of philosophy and harmony, we can mitigate this kind of a slope. I strongly believe science and technology can solve almost all the problems. But the problem is the time needed to develop new technology and science. The crisis is approaching so closely, so fast. So we do need some time to develop good technology and good science applications. To that, we do need to think about the introduction of the philosophy and harmony, and also even the social sciences. Then postpone the crisis by mitigation, by changing our way of thinking and the way of the lifestyles. So, I'd like to share with you some concept which I feel are very important in achieving the kind of change in mentality that I have been discussing. This photograph shows the famous tsukubai in Japanese, of Ryoanji Temple in Kyoto. And even individual houses have this kind of tsukubai with this symbol on the surface of the stone. And there are 5 letters, Chinese characters, but each 4 characters does not mean anything. But if we combine with the square in the center, that shows a mouth. Then we have 4 letters described here. Waretada kore wa shiru. That means I'm content with what we have. I'm content with what we have. And on the right, I have shown 3 famous phrases which Japanese people have been prized. Mottainai, prudence or wastefulness. That's mottainai. And mittomonai, that's a self-respect or pride. You should have a pride. And K for katajikenai, that's gratitude. It's a wider concept than just thanking. Appreciation to nature, appreciation to people, that's katajikenai. So this MMK was a Japanese tradition, a way of thinking, or even much more spread in many countries in Asia. But today, unfortunately, the same MMK means different. More, never enough, a must win. Motto madamada katanakucha in Japanese. So we need to back to the original one, mottainai, mittomonai, and katajikenai. that helps, actually, to postpone the crisis so that science and technology can save our current civilizations. Don't you think so? The British historian E.H. Carr asserted that history is an unending dialogue between the past and the present. History is an unending dialogue between the present and the past. A well-known phrase. On this ever-changing planet Earth, we humans have thus far been rushing headlong into trouble due to our short-term perspective and desire for convenient material gain. The time has now come for us to start thinking of the future as being just as long as the past. Just as long as the past. People tend to think of the past, but in the same way, we have to think about the future. And this kind of say, holistic view is necessary. This planet Earth is getting smaller and smaller and could not support our current civilization. So we probably need to extend our view not only to this Earth, but also nearby interplanetary space. So my dream, my personal dream, is to develop a solar system civilizations. And in the left, a very short time, I'd like to show some of the works which I have been involved. That solar power station, that energy from space. The economic growth is predicted grow in a very fast way from 1990 to 2100. But it's illusion. It's illusion. That causes this kind of population, energy, and global warming, and the resource shortage crisis, as I have mentioned, and all you know. So we are now at the subtle point, the human future. Say the 21st century then demands sciences for longevity of human and its civilization. That means survivability, not simply a sustainability. We seriously have to think the survivability as a human civilization on this planet. So for longevity of human civilization, space civilization is almost inevitable. That's my belief. This is a cartoon which my group drew. The space has plenty of resources such as the moon, and moons of Jupiter's, moons of Saturn's, everywhere. And you can bring back the shortage of the lack of materials from the moon to the Earth, if we could develop such kind of tool. And also, if we extend a large-scale solar array in space, you can easily collect sun power for 24 hours, day and night, and can beam down to the Earth. It's clean energy, as clean as atomic energy from the standpoint of view of CO2 issues. So SBS research have developed, and there are many sentences, but since time's out, I do not read these, but in the text you can find it out. I disordered your biograph, I'm sorry, in this morning, so you can find out somewhere. Solar power stations is carbon dioxide free power source, and actually, as you